Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. Aiden Carter could feel the weight of the universe pressing down on him as he stood on the launch platform of the Galactic Speed Championship. The sprawling city of Zenoria stretched out beneath him, its gleaming towers and neon lights humming with energy. Above, the stars twinkled against the dark void of space, and beyond them, millions of eyes were watching, alien species from all corners of the galaxy, eager to witness the most prestigious race ever held. This was it. The moment he'd been training for his entire life. Humanity's first invitation to compete on the galactic stage, and Aiden was the one chosen to represent Earth. He had dreamed of this day, imagined it so many times that it felt surreal now that it was finally happening. He glanced at the holographic screen in front of him, showing the lineup of competitors. The best racers in the galaxy, each one more intimidating than the last. There was Vraxkor, the reigning champion from the Zalon race, a cybernetically enhanced predator with reflexes faster than any human could hope to match. Then there was Zirathal, a sleek, amphibious creature from the water world of Brontis, her ship rumored to have a liquid form that could shift in mid-race. And finally, Qatar, a massive being made of living metal, his body a fusion of machine and biology. Aiden felt a flutter of nerves in his stomach, but he pushed it down. He wasn't here to be intimidated. He was here to win. Everything set, Aiden. The voice of his engineer, Sophie, crackled in his earpiece, bringing him back to the moment. Yeah, he replied, his voice steady. Terra X9 is ready. Sophie had worked alongside Aiden for years, designing and perfecting the Terra X9, Earth's answer to the galaxy's cutting-edge racecraft. It was a sleek, silver machine, not the fastest or most heavily armed, but agile and responsive in a way no alien ship could match. Its secret weapon? The adaptive thrusters, a technology born from human ingenuity, allowing Aiden to make hairpin turns and micro-adjustments on the fly. It wasn't just about speed, it was about precision. And that was how he planned to win. You're going to do great, Sophie said, her voice filled with confidence. Just remember, you've got the best tech in the galaxy. They don't know what's coming. Aiden smiled despite himself. Let's hope so. As the countdown began, Aiden climbed into the cockpit of the Terra X9, the familiar hum of the ship's engines vibrating beneath him. He strapped himself in, feeling the controls under his fingers. This was where he felt most alive, on the edge, with everything on the line. The roar of the crowd filled his ears, but he tuned it out, focusing on the task ahead. The Galactic Speed Championship wasn't just a race. It was a spectacle, a series of deadly challenges that tested not only a pilot's speed but their skill, ingenuity, and ability to adapt. The course spanned light years, winding through asteroid fields, plasma storms, and alien structures designed to throw even the most experienced racers off balance. One wrong move, and it was over. Aiden knew the risks. He'd trained for them. The countdown hit zero, and the world exploded into motion. The racers shot off the line, their ships a blur of color and light. Aiden's Terra X9 surged forward, the adaptive thrusters kicking in as he accelerated, the G-forces pressing him back into his seat. Vraxkor and Zirathal were already pulling ahead, their ships designed for raw speed, but Aiden wasn't worried. He had a plan. The first section of the race took them into the asteroid belt of Valen, a chaotic stretch of space littered with massive rocks tumbling through the void. Most racers powered through, relying on their ship's shields to deflect the smaller debris. But Aiden knew that brute force wasn't the way to win here. He dialed back the speed slightly, allowing the Terra X9 to weave between the asteroids with precise, almost graceful movements. His ship slipped through gaps that the others had to avoid, cutting the corners tighter than anyone else could. "Looking good, Aiden," Sophie's voice crackled through the comms. "You're in fourth, but closing in on the leaders." "Not good enough," Aiden muttered, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. He could see Vrax's ship, a black, angular machine, tearing through the field with reckless abandon. The Zaylon champion wasn't concerned about strategy. He relied on his ship's speed and firepower to blast anything in his way. Aiden clenched his jaw. He couldn't let Vrax get too far ahead. Suddenly, a flash of light streaked across his vision, and Aiden's heart leapt into his throat. Zira Thal had veered too close to a massive asteroid, and her ship's tail clipped the surface, sending her spiraling out of control. Aiden saw the opening and took it, his hands flying over the controls as he pushed the Terra X-9 into a sharp dive, skimming the edge of the asteroid and pulling ahead of Zira in one fluid motion. "Nice move." Sophie cheered. "You're in third." But Aiden didn't have time to celebrate. The course was about to get even more dangerous. Ahead, the asteroid field gave way to the plasma storm of Zalith, a swirling maelstrom of electric blue lightning and volatile energy fields. This was where the race really began. The plasma storm wasn't just a physical obstacle, it played havoc with a ship's systems, frying circuits and disrupting shields. Many racers had been forced to drop out of previous races after their ships were overwhelmed by the storm's power. Aiden gritted his teeth, adjusting the Terra X-9's shields to compensate. He could already see sparks dancing across the surface of his ship as the plasma energy crackled around him. "You've got this," Sophie's voice was steady in his ear. "Just keep the shields balanced. Don't push too hard." Aiden nodded, focusing on the controls. He could feel the energy in the air, the hair on the back of his neck standing on end as the ship shook under the force of the storm. The adaptive thrusters worked overtime, allowing him to make quick adjustments as the storm buffeted the Terra X-9 from all sides. Up ahead, he could see Vrax and Qatar, both struggling to maintain control in the storm's intensity. Vrax's ship, powerful as it was, wasn't built for finesse. He was relying on brute force to muscle through, but even he was slowing down. This was Aiden's moment. He activated the Terra X-9's plasma reactor shields, a human innovation that absorbed the storm's energy and converted it into additional power. As the ship surged forward, Aiden felt the thrusters respond, giving him the boost he needed. He shot past Qatar first, the massive metal alien unable to react quickly enough. Then, as Vrax fought to maintain his lead, Aiden cut sharply to the side, riding the plasma currents like a wave. The Terra X-9 slipped past Vrax's ship in a blur, the adaptive thrusters keeping him steady as he navigated the storm with ease. "You're in second." Sophie's excitement was palpable. "Keep it up." Aiden grinned, but his focus remained razor-sharp. The finish line was still far off, and Vrax wasn't the type to take a challenge lightly. As if on cue, Vrax's voice crackled through Aiden's comms. "Enjoy your moment, human. It won't last." Before Aiden could respond, his ship jolted violently. He looked at his display and saw that Vrax had fired a disruptor bolt, a dirty trick designed to disable his ship's systems. For a moment, everything went dark, and Aiden's heart stopped, but then, with a few quick taps on the controls, he rerouted power and brought the Terra X-9 back online. The ship stabilized, and Aiden let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Dirty move," Aiden muttered under his breath, but it didn't matter. Vrax had revealed his desperation, and Aiden knew that gave him an advantage. The Zaylon might be faster, but he didn't have the patience or the creativity to win this race on anything but speed. The final stretch of the race was the most dangerous of all, the labyrinth, an ancient alien structure filled with narrow corridors, shifting walls, and hidden traps. Only the most skilled pilots could make it through unscathed. Aiden could see it now, the massive stone edifice looming ahead. Vrax was still in the lead, but not by much. This was where the race would be decided. As they entered the labyrinth, the walls closed in, the space between them barely wide enough for the ships to pass. Aiden's heart pounded in his chest as he navigated the twisting, turning pathways. The Terra X-9's adaptive thrusters responded to every flick of his hand, adjusting his trajectory with pinpoint precision. Behind him, Qatar was struggling, his massive frame unsuited for the tight corridors. Aiden didn't have to worry about him anymore. This was between him and Vrax, and now, the Zaylon champion was ahead, but Aiden could see him slowing down, struggling with the unpredictable twists and turns of the labyrinth. Vrax's ship was powerful, but it wasn't agile. And that was Aiden's opening. He waited for the right moment, watching as Vrax took a wide turn around a sharp corner. Then, with a burst of speed, Aiden cut through a narrow gap in the wall, shaving precious seconds off his time. He emerged from the other side just ahead of Vrax, the finish line now in sight. Vrax roared in frustration, pushing his ship to its limits in a desperate attempt to overtake Aiden. But it was too late. The Terra X-9's adaptive thrusters carried him across the finish line, the roar of the crowd filling his ears as the race ended. Aiden had done it. He collapsed back into his seat, his heart still racing as the realization sank in. He had won. Not just for himself, but for Earth. For humanity. As the other racers crossed the finish line, Aiden climbed out of the cockpit, the cheers of the crowd washing over him. Vrax stalked past, his face twisted with fury, but he said nothing. There was nothing he could say. Aiden had proven himself. On the podium, with the trophy in hand, Aiden felt a swell of pride. This wasn't just a victory in a race, it was a statement. Humanity wasn't to be underestimated. They had the creativity, the ingenuity, and the drive to compete with the best the galaxy had to offer. As Aiden stood there, the weight of the trophy in his hands, the cheers of the galactic audience still echoing in his ears, the reality of what he had achieved began to settle in. For a moment, he allowed himself to take it all in, the rush of victory, the recognition, the affirmation that humanity could not only compete but triumph on the galactic stage. His victory was more than just personal, it was a symbol of Earth's arrival in a galaxy full of more advanced and powerful beings. But even in this moment of triumph, Aiden couldn't shake a lingering sense of unease. Vrax Kor, the former champion, had stormed off the podium without a word. His defeat was public, and for someone like Vrax, that was more dangerous than any insult or injury. Aiden knew that his victory might have won him respect, but it had also made enemies. There would be consequences, not just for him but for Earth. Sophie's voice crackled through the earpiece. Aiden, that was incredible. You did it. Everyone back at base is losing their minds. Aiden smiled, grateful for her excitement. Couldn't have done it without you, sophomore. The Terra X-9 held up perfectly. You drove that thing like it was part of you, she said, her voice buzzing with pride. No one's going to forget what you just did. Aiden glanced back toward the crowds, the alien faces cheering, jeering, or simply watching in disbelief. He nodded slightly to himself. Yeah, he said quietly, but now comes the hard part. He made his way off the podium, pushing through the crowd of officials, sponsors, and media drones that hovered around him, eager for a quote or an interview. He wasn't in the mood for talking. The adrenaline that had carried him through the race was beginning to wear off, leaving him with a gnawing sense of exhaustion. The celebration could wait. Right now, he needed a quiet place to think. As he reached the edge of the arena, a shadow moved in the corner of his vision. Vrax's core. The towering Xalon stood near one of the docking bays, his arms crossed, his glowing red eyes fixed on Aiden with a burning intensity. The look wasn't one of admiration or grudging respect, it was hatred. Aiden tensed, but he kept walking, refusing to show any sign of weakness. He knew Vrax wouldn't try anything here, not in front of the crowds and the Galactic Racing Federation officials. But there would be a time, and Aiden knew it. He'd embarrassed the champion, stripped him of his title in front of the entire galaxy. Vrax wouldn't forget that. You got a target on your back now, Carter. Sophie's voice buzzed in his ear again, as if reading his thoughts. Vrax doesn't strike me as the forgiving type. Aiden let out a small sigh. Yeah, I got that impression. But there was nothing he could do about Vrax right now. He pushed the thought aside and headed toward the Terra X9, where Sophie was waiting with a grin that stretched across her face. You made history out there, you know that, she said, rushing over to him as soon as he arrived. Feels like it, Aiden replied, pulling off his racing helmet and letting the cool air wash over his sweat-soaked face. How's the ship? Sophie's face softened with a more thoughtful expression. The Terra X9 held up great, but it's going to need some serious repairs after that plasma storm. You really pushed it to the limit. Aiden smiled, patting the side of the sleek silver ship. It earned a rest. They stood there for a moment, both of them watching as the officials prepared the ship for transport back to the Earth base. It felt strange to Aiden, this quiet after the chaos of the race. The sense of accomplishment was there, but so was the weight of what came next. They'd proven themselves, but it meant more eyes would be on them now. Earth's place in the galaxy had shifted, and with that came a whole new set of challenges. Aiden, Sophie said after a pause, her voice more serious now. You know this isn't over, right? He nodded slowly. Yeah, I know. She looked around, making sure no one was within earshot. Vrax isn't the only one who's pissed. You just showed the galaxy that Earth is capable of things they never thought possible. There are going to be people, entire factions, that don't like that. Aiden stared out at the distant stars, understanding the weight of her words. We knew this was coming. But if we back down now, it'll just show them we're afraid. Sophie gave him a long look, then nodded. So what's next? Aiden smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. We keep going. The galaxy's a big place, and we've just scratched the surface. As they prepared to leave, Aiden couldn't help but glance back at the grand arena, the place where he had made history. It was a moment he would never forget, but it was also just the beginning. The galaxy had been watching, and now, they would be waiting. The return to Earth was a quieter affair than Aiden expected. No grand parades or widespread celebrations. For all the glory he'd brought back, the reality of interstellar politics loomed like a shadow over the victory. Earth had earned recognition, but that recognition came with attention, and attention wasn't always a good thing. That he spent the next few weeks at the Earth spaceport, working with Sophie and the rest of the crew to repair and upgrade the Terra X9. The race had taken its toll on the ship, and they had to be ready for whatever came next. Aiden found solace in the routine, the sound of tools, the smell of fuel, the constant hum of the workshop. It was simple, familiar, and for a time, it allowed him to forget about Vrax, about the attention of the galaxy, about what lay ahead. But the quiet wouldn't last. It never did. One evening, as Aiden was tightening the last bolt on one of the Terra X9's thrusters, Sophie came rushing into the workshop, her face pale. Aiden, you need to see this. He wiped his hands on a rag and followed her to the main control room, where the large screen displayed an incoming transmission. It was from the Galactic Racing Federation, but the message wasn't what he had expected. The face on the screen wasn't that of an official. It was Vrax's core. Aiden's stomach tightened as he listened to the message. Carter, Vrax's voice was low, filled with malice. You may have won the race, but you haven't won the war. The next time we meet, there won't be rules to protect you. There won't be crowds. Just you and me. The message cut out, leaving an ominous silence in the room. Sophie turned to Aiden, her face full of concern. What are you going to do? Aiden stared at the blank screen for a long moment before speaking. Prepare the ship. If Vrax wants a rematch, we'll be ready. Sophie frowned. You can't be serious. This isn't like the race. You know he'll come after you with everything he's got. He's not just trying to beat you this time. He wants to destroy you. Aiden nodded slowly. I know. But we don't have a choice. If we run, it'll show the galaxy that we're afraid. And if we fight on our terms, we stand a chance. Sophie let out a frustrated sigh but didn't argue further. All right, she said, her voice grim. We'll get the Terra X-9 ready. But you better be damn careful, Aiden. As the days passed, the tension built. Aiden trained relentlessly, preparing for what he knew would be the most dangerous race of his life. This wasn't about fame or recognition anymore, it was survival. Vrax had nothing left to lose, and that made him unpredictable. Finally, the day came. Vrax had sent coordinates, an uncharted system in a remote corner of the galaxy. It was a place with no witnesses, no spectators. Just the two of them, and the deadly race they would run. Aiden climbed into the cockpit of the Terra X-9, his hands steady on the controls. Sophie's voice came through the comms one last time. You don't have to do this, Aiden. We can find another way. He shook his head. There is no other way. If we don't stand up now, we'll be running for the rest of our lives. With that, he launched into space, heading toward the rendezvous point. As the stars blurred past him, Aiden felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. This was what it all came down to. Everything he had fought for, everything he had risked. It wasn't just about beating Vrax anymore. It was about proving that humanity wouldn't back down, no matter the odds. As the Terra X-9 approached the barren planet where Vrax waited, Aiden's mind focused, every muscle tense, every nerve alert. This was it. Vrax's ship hovered ominously in the distance, a dark shadow against the stars. The comms crackled to life, Vrax's voice cutting through the silence. Ready to lose everything, Carter? Aiden's grip tightened on the controls. Not today. The race began, and Aiden pushed the Terra X-9 harder than he ever had before, his mind and body in perfect sync with the ship. It was a brutal, no-holds-barred contest, with Vrax using every dirty trick he could think of, disruptor bolts, energy mines, and ramming maneuvers. But Aiden had anticipated it all. He had prepared, trained, and studied every move Vrax might make. In the final moments of the race, as they barreled toward the finish line, a narrow gap in the planet's atmosphere, Vrax made one last desperate attempt to destroy Aiden, firing a missile that would obliterate both of them. Aiden acted on instinct, flipping the Terra X-9 in a maneuver that defied every law of physics, sending Vrax's missile off course and right back at him. The explosion lit up the sky, and Vrax's ship disintegrated in a fiery burst. Aiden crossed the finish line alone, his heart pounding, his body shaking with exhaustion. He had won, but more importantly, he had survived. As the Terra X-9 drifted through the calm of space, Aiden leaned back in his seat, letting out a long breath. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and dangers. But one thing was certain: humanity was here to stay.